Hello, my name is Esperanza Romero. I'm the Gear Up Coordinator at Conexion Americas, and I will be guiding us through the first part in this three-part information series. I highly encourage you that you check out part 2 and 3 of this information series to get the full benefits of our content. Now, a little bit more about us. We are a nonprofit here in Nashville, where we're building a welcoming community and creating opportunities where Latinx families can belong, contribute, and succeed. And our services actually expand into 3 separate buckets. The first one being our education programs, additionally, our economic programs, and also our community and civic programs as well. In today's agenda, we will be covering intro to immigration terms, the who's who when it comes to our immigrant students, the terms and statuses that they can find themselves in, why this matters, language and terms, and then communication around status to create a safe environment for students. In part 1 specifically, we'll be covering how to work with non-FAFSA eligible students. Now, the first overview is just to highlight the fact that our current immigration system is complicated. Currently, all immigration is based per country quotas, including refugee limits. So this means that if a country has a high level of immigration to the United States, people have to wait years and sometimes decades just to adjust to a permanent resident status. The first term that a student can find themselves under is TPS. This is granted to foreign-born students who are granted the right to live and work in the United States until the Department of Homeland Security ends their temporary status. This status focuses on students who are citizens of nations with ongoing armed conflicts, such as civil wars, environmental disasters like earthquakes or hurricanes, epidemics, or other extraordinary and temporary conditions. Now, once the status expires, there's currently no legal pathway to residency or citizenship. Currently, the United States does provide the status for 12 different countries. However, in 2019, there was a limit in where 6 different nations had terminations that have not taken effect due to litigation. So via a federal registration notice, the Department of Homeland Security has automatically extended the validity of these statuses until December 31st, 2022. Please note that all students under the TPS status are not eligible for federal financial aid. Now, students under a U visa are students who have been granted a visa that typically lasts about 4 years, and it's for those that are already living in the United States and have participated with the police by filing a report. There currently is a limit to the amount of U visas granted in the United States, with a max cap of $10,000 per year. Please note that applications for this type of visa are behind when it comes to processing times. Many students who fall under this visa will apply for a waiver that forgives them for having entered or remaining without documents while they wait the processing time. After 3 years of having a U visa, students can apply for permanent residency. However, while they are under the U visa term, they are not eligible for federal financial aid. Students who fall under asylum versus refugee status. So asylum and refugee status are both given to foreign-born students who must prove that they have a fear of persecution in their country of nationality that is found in race, religion, nationality, racial group, or political opinion. Now, to seek asylum, someone has to physically be present at a port of entry in the United States to request an interview. Once they go through the interview process, they are assigned a court case with our immigration court system. But please note that they are not guaranteed a lawyer. Now, currently, all applicants are released into the United States and they wait for their court dates. However, in the past, we have seen people be jailed or forced to remain at the border due to the Remain in Mexico policy. On the other hand, we have refugees who apply from outside of the United States. Now, currently, there is a legal cap that is set by Congress each year, and it has been seen brought to a dramatic low with the previous administration. Now, refugees must pass through many checks, including interviews, fingerprints, background checks, and this process can take years. Why this matters? An immigration status matters for our students when it comes to financial aid and determining eligibility. A key overview is that eligible non-citizens are currently conditional permanent residents, lawful permanent residents, refugees, and asylum granted. Students with asylum pending status are not eligible for federal financial aid. Again, this is all just scratching the surface, and there are many more eligible and ineligible statuses. Now, a quick overview of statuses that are eligible for federal financial aid. The first one being U.S. citizens, so if they are born a U.S. citizen or have adjusted to the status of U.S. citizen, or students with a green card. Additionally, we have students that have an arrival departure record or an I-94. Also, students who have a battered immigrant status or similarly a T visa. Additional immigration terms to keep in mind, the first one being DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So DACA was an executive action and that was announced by former President Obama in 2012. What DACA does is it allows students to obtain a work authorization, a social security number, and allows them to work legally in the United States, all while preventing deportation. Now, please note this is not a legal status and currently does not have a pathway to legal status. The requirements for a student to qualify for DACA are that they must have arrived before 2007 and be the age of 16, be in school, or have graduated. Additionally, they are required to not have a criminal history. Anything other than a driving incident would prohibit them from applying. Now, it currently costs $495 to file, and it must be renewed every 2 years. Documented students do not count as Tennessee residents and are also not eligible for federal financial aid. Here are some updates in regards to the DACA status. The processing times can vary either a month or 2 to 6 months for a renewal, and if it's a new application, it can take 5 to 10 months. Starting in 2017, the legality of DACA has been questioned and debated in court. So any first-time applications have been accepted, but on and off these past few years. And most recently, in July 16th, a federal judge in Texas did order that DACA be partially ended. So current recipients can continue to renew their status, but all new applications will not be processed. Now, here are some resources if a student requests information in regards to DACA. We highly recommend locally to reach out to the Tennessee Immigration and Refugee Rights Coalition, Justice for Our Neighbors, and Conexion Americas. Please be sure to follow up and check on United We Dream and Immigrants Rising. Now, at this time, if you would, please take a 5-minute pause just to go over what we've learned. Is there something new that you've learned or any sort of knowledge that you've confirmed? Feel free to take a pause and we'll come back shortly after this break. Here's some language and terms that you may hear around a student status. The first one being undocumented. What this would mean is that someone is lacking the appropriate documentation to establish permanent residency or a green card. Unauthorized, meaning that someone currently does not have the authorization to be present or living in the United States. DACA, Deferred Action Childhood Arrivals. Similar to DACA, we have documented and dreamers. So these are youth who would benefit directly from the enactment of the DREAM Act. A mixed status household is something a student can find themselves under. It's when at least one member is a citizen, permanent resident, and others may be undocumented. Now, a term that we want to avoid when referring to our students is illegal or alien. And the reason for that is that it is a negative term. It does dehumanize our students, and it doesn't promote a safe space. These are situations we want to avoid when it comes to our students. We never want to assume that a student is undocumented. This could be either based on their background, their language they speak, sibling status, and please remember that there are undocumented students from all over the world, and mixed status families are actually very common. Remember, don't keep a list of students' information. Schools are not allowed to request or maintain any sort of list in regards to a student status. Remember to not give advice in regards to immigration. We do have resources provided where you can reach out if a student does request information. And lastly, we want to remember that our students sometimes are not aware at this time of their status. So don't assume that a student knows their status or understands the implications or timeline, especially for not U.S. born students. Now, we can find ourselves in a situation where a student does reveal their status. Now, a student could reveal their status if they have identified a sort of tie or affinity that both of you share. This could be culturally, racially, or anything else that has helped build trust with them. So make sure that if they think you are understanding or accepting, that you treasure this enormous trust they have shown you. Another reason a student could disclose or reveal their status is if they cannot complete a class, the FAFSA application, any sort of internship without them telling you of their inability to comply with the requirements due to their situation. Students could also disclose if you are in a position to assist them with a concern as a resource. For example, if you are there to provide information or to access a certain resource. And lastly, students obviously communicate with each other. So another student might have told them that you were the right person to talk to. When a student comes out to you, they are sharing information about their immigration status with you, with keen awareness on the risks involved. The risk of jeopardizing their relationship with you, the risk of being rejected, and the risk of being denied success in your classroom or program. So unless you have given some indication of your feelings or beliefs about the undocumented, they may have no way of knowing in advance whether your reaction will be positive or negative. Please remember that your reaction is critical in creating and cultivating a safe space for our students. Things we want to avoid saying are highlighted here and then followed with a few key details on what would be a good way to handle this situation. One example, in case a student does disclose their status, you don't want to say, so you're illegal, you don't have papers, as this can seem really negative, offensive, and obviously we want to avoid the term illegal. A good suggestion to handle this situation would be to say, I'm really proud of you advocating for yourself. Additionally, there are resources that can be provided to students. Our information will be at the end of this presentation, and always feel free to reach out. Ways that we can determine a status for a student is in honoring the trust and vulnerability if they do share their DACA or undocumented status with you. Now, a good way to think of this is in a coming out way. So it's viewed just as important as a coming out would be in the LGBTQ community. So it is a big moment. Now, you want to encourage students to access local support groups like the TIRC. They do have a program specifically for DACA students. Additionally, JFON, they offer legal services at Casa Afghan. feel free to reach out to us and we can connect you to them. Now, we want to encourage older students and families to follow reliable information when it comes to following and learning about these issues, specifically pertaining to DACA because it is constantly changing. Also, we do encourage that you follow the same resources to stay informed, always adapting and always applying whatever current event and news are pertaining to key immigration issues. These resources can also help you explain or interpret news. Now, please remember to be honest with students and share the transparency that not being a citizen does make pathways to college and career a little bit more complicated, but there are resources to assist in all that decision making. When it comes to asking students about their status, technically schools are not allowed to inquire about an immigration status. So you want to think about this carefully. Context is really important. Additionally, the trust and relationship you've built with the student is really important. Be prepared for their response when asking for their status. It could be positive or negative. Now, it is a step you've taken, so it is a responsibility. Intent is very important, and please remember the impact asking for status can have. So you don't want to share this information on any official capacity. Please be careful. Again, our goal is to create a safe environment for all students. So do not write or email or print any of this information. Always have resources available if necessary if questions do come up with a student. Now, if you do absolutely have to ask students about their status, please remember that it might be a little uncomfortable, but here are a few suggestions on how to go about asking that. A good example would be saying, do you understand what it means to be a citizen or resident? Or do you know if you're a citizen or a resident of the United States? Again, the biggest thing is making sure that you have their permission in case you do have to share these answers, and that if we are to provide the most accurate information to students, sometimes you do have to ask. Now, here are some closing thoughts. Whatever the situation is, always remember to honor the enormous trust the students have shown you. All we would like is for you to help and extend a safe environment for students that do find themselves identifying under these terms. Here are some suggested responses around communication and what would be a best approach in how to handle those situations. If you have any questions on how to connect with other resources or have any questions for us, here's our contact information, and we do hope to connect with you. Also, please remember to check out part 2 and 3 of our information session to receive the full benefits of how this ties into college success and working with Latinx students. Thank you.